Hey, happy Valentine's Day, everybody! Jeffrey Michael here, and welcome to a heart-filled edition of Jeffrey Michael's Movie Reviews Extravaganza. I say happy Valentine's Day because I'm actually recording this on Valentine's Day, alone. I don't have a Valentine today. Hopefully I will have one in the near future, hopefully. Anywho, in this video, I will be reviewing the movies that were released on Valentine's Day weekend, or February the 9th, of 2018. The first film that I will review from February the 9th is 50 Shades Freed, rated R. It stars Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan, and was directed by James Foley, who brought you such films as Perfect Stranger, and the previous 50 Shades film, 50 Shades Darker. Now, 50 Shades Freed is the third and final film in the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy. Thank God. For those of you who don't know, 50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades Darker, and 50 Shades Freed are based on a trilogy of books by the British author E.L. James. Basically, she's an author who fell in love with the Twilight series so much that she created her own fan fiction, and then in turn turned that fan fiction into her own best-selling novels, if you can call them that. Basically, it's romance books that include, bondage, S&M, BDSM, if you're into that kind of stuff. Not me. Well, let's start off by saying, let's be honest here. These books are garbage. I mean, they're garbage. Garbage dialogue, garbage writing. I mean, even if you're a fan of these books, even you can't deny they're basically just glorified, low-rent S&M porn books. But seriously, though, if you haven't heard of them, the brief synopsis. The first book, 50 Shades of Grey, and the movie, it's about a plain Jane brunette played by Dakota Johnson. She plays Anastasia Steele, and she's basically a girl who lives a life of know-nothing life, and she goes to interview a Seattle billionaire who's debonair and good-looking Christian Grey, played by Jamie Dornan. And despite the initial awkward first impression, he becomes intrigued by her. Why? I have no idea. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why the Twilight books and these books are so popular, is because it fulfills that fantasy of a plain Jane girl being pursued by a good-looking debonair guy. But let's be honest, in reality, a guy like him would never go for a frumpy girl like her. It just doesn't happen, ladies, sorry. But I guess they like that fantasy. But anyway, he becomes intrigued by her, and the two of them get together, and there's a lot of kinky sex that happens. I mean, that's another good reason, kinky sex, everyone loves that. And, they eventually comes to a head when, he is way too into it and dominates her too much and like, enough, I can't take this life, and she leaves him. And in the second book and film, she comes back to him, and there's more kinky sex, and then they have more problems, and then there's a proposal that ends with that way. And then the third film, which is the one that I'm reviewing now, they just got married and had a honeymoon, and they come back to settle into their lives. She wants to continue working, she doesn't want to be a gold digger, and she get threatening messages from Jack Hyde. In the previous film, Jack Hyde was the guy that she worked for, Anastasia, and he blackmailed her, to doing stuff, sex stuff with him. And then in turn, Christian, fired him and made him lose his job, and he had his, ego tarnished, and he was upset of that, so he vowed revenge against the both of them. And let's just say throughout this movie, one of the problems is Jack Hyde, watching out for him and what he's going to do. And the other problem that she discovers is that she's pregnant. And, Christian is not happy with that. We were going to wait to have kids. What, you don't want kids now? And it's like, the audience is like, probably you should have thought of that before you got married. Just like the previous films, ladies and germs, this one it's bad. I mean, come on. The dialogue is crap as usual, because it's based on the book, which is equally crap. And it's stilted dialogue, so it's funny, because the actors like they're talking in their sleep. I mean, why do you mean you don't want to go with me? I don't want this baby. Oh, well, can't we have sex now? It's like they're so, like they're bored with the material, and I can't blame them. I mean, it's crap material is what it is. And the situations, like I mentioned, Jack Hyde and all the situations that they're involved in, they're supposed to be suspenseful, like a thriller, but at no point did I ever feel like they were actually in actual danger. I mean, that's the thing. The film felt so flat. It's like, should I be worried here? Because I don't feel like they're in any bit trouble. And also just the whole idea, the whole romance. I mean, even if you're just watching this movie just for the sex scenes, even then, it's just a guilty pleasure without the pleasure. So you just feel guilty watching it. I mean, it's stilted, it's robotic sex. It's like there's nothing here that's sensual or erotic or anything. I mean, these books and these movies, I'm really glad that they're over with, so we never have to hear about them again. And, it could have been an intriguing movie because, Christian Grey, you find out, in the movies that, he lost his virginity at age 15 to one of his mom's best friends, and she introduced him to the whole BDSM lifestyle. So that could have been a good, like, psychological movie where you see a guy struggling with this and going to a psychiatrist and, working through his problems while he's falling in love with this girl. But here's the problem. This movie, not once does he ever go to a psychiatrist. It's like, I met the perfect girl, and we're going to start a family, so I'm magically cured from my, BDSM, headspace that I've been in for so long. It doesn't work like that, people. Overall, I give this movie a D. I mean, there's almost nothing redeeming about these movies, people. I mean, if you want to see sex, go ahead, enjoy yourself, or try to, because even the sex isn't that great. And I really hope that Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan can rebound from this and find some projects that actually put their talents to good use. Would I recommend this one Valentine's Day weekend? If you're a couple and you're into kiki sex, go ahead, but I can't recommend it. I mean, if I had to choose between, going to see this movie again or having someone, tie me down naked and whip me repeatedly, I would be like, okay, sir, here are the ties and the whip. Have at it. Moving on. So the next film that I will review is Peter Rabbit, rated PG. It stars Domhnall Gleeson, Rose Byrne, and James Corden, and was directed by Will Gluck, who brought you such films as Easy A, Friends with Benefits, and that unnecessary Annie remake, with the Black Annie and Cameron Diaz as Miss Hannigan. Let's pretend that never happened. So Peter Rabbit is based on a series of books, The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter. I read those books as a kid and I loved them. But I should probably start by saying, despite its title, this film has nothing to do with Peter Rabbit. More on that in a moment, though. So the movie is set in England. It's about an anthropomorphized rabbit named Peter, voiced by James Corden lovingly, and his triplet sisters, Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, and his cousin Benjamin. These 5 rabbits are constantly trying to break into Mr. McGregor's vegetable garden. And it's funny, throughout the whole movie they're trying to get in this garden. It's like, why are these vegetables so that damn good? It's like, why can't they just find their food in the wild like other normal rabbits? And so they also have an ally. The next door neighbor is a woman named Bee, played by Rose Byrne. And she's like a mother to these rabbits because they lost their mother and father bunny. Which is funny because Peter Rabbit's mother is alive and well in the book, so why they felt they needed to kill her off, I have no idea. And Bee, obviously she's supposed to represent Beatrix Potter, the author, because she's a budding artist, and you see her illustrations, and they look just like Beatrix Potter's illustrations, so yeah, there you go. And one day, Peter is stealing more vegetables again, and Mr. McGregor finally captures him, and just as he's about to do something to him, Mr. McGregor suffers a fatal heart attack, and he dies there on the spot. And how does Peter and his siblings react to his death? Sweet! The garden and the house are ours, everyone! Ooh, cold much? Damn. And they think that it's all theirs, except they don't realize that Mr. McGregor has a nephew named Thomas McGregor, played by Domhnall Gleeson, who lives in London. And he's kind of controlling, and he's a perfectionist. And he finds out his uncle has died, and he inherited his house. And he begrudgingly goes back to the country, planning to sell off the house so he can buy his own toy store. But then he meets Bee, and he's infatuated by her, and he falls in love. But he also hates these creatures that are trying to get into his garden too. But he finds out that she loves them. So when she's around, he and Peter are good old buddy friends. And then she turns her back, and they're all ready to get their comeuppance and wail at each other. The big fight. And that's pretty much where the rest of the movie goes. But can I just say this movie was quite a disappointment. I mean, like I said, there is very little to do with Peter Rabbit. And I'll explain why. First of all, this movie does not manage to capture the tone or the spirit of the books. In fact, they try so hard to make it feel modern and hip. Like they have bunnies like saying, outdated phrases like, say what? Or they have a current pop culture song playing during almost every scene. It's like you're horribly dating your film by doing all that. And also the jokes and a lot of the dialogue are just not very inventive or even funny. There was a specific scene in the movie that pretty much did it for me. First time when Thomas McGregor goes into the house and all the animals are inside, they're hiding, and he sits on the couch and he sees the blanket next to him start to move. And so he pulls the blanket up, and there's a pig there. And how does he react to that? Ah! A very high-pitched, girlish scream. And then the pig screams back at him. Ah! Ah! And they scream back at each other, back and forth. And it's like, first of all, that's such a cliche of a joke I've seen so many times before. And, the person screams, the other person screams because that person's screaming, and back and forth screaming. It's been done. And it doesn't even make any sense. Like, why is he screaming high-pitched like a girl? I mean, it's not like he's seeing Freddy Krueger or Chucky or Steve Bannon. I mean, it's a freaking pig. I mean, it's at that point when I realized just where this movie was going with joke-wise, and I just was not having it. I mean, the pig character that I mentioned, guess what? He eats like, wait for it, a pig. I mean, it's how original, right? A lot of the jokes are like that. It's like, come on, guys, you can be better than that. And the worst part of this movie, ladies and gentlemen, is that I despised the main characters, those rabbits. I mean, the whole movie, they come off like arrogant, entitled a-holes. I mean, the whole movie, they're trying to get into this garden, take these vegetables, believing that it belongs to them, for the simple reason that all land once belonged to the animals anyway. I mean, what a terrible excuse. That's a human being, and that's for his vegetables. And I actually felt sorry for him. I mean, any normal human being would want to keep rabbits out of their garden. Am I right, people? Wouldn't you want to keep animals out of your garden? I mean, it's pretty natural. So, I mean, they try so hard to disrupt his life. They, even try to kill him. I mean, they set bear traps on him, and they electrocute him. And at one point, he says he's allergic to blackberries, so they shoot blackberries into his mouth to, make him choke. They're murderers! Like, why on earth would I support these characters? I'm now supporting the humans here. I mean, it's kind of sad. I mean, there's actually good parts of the movie where the whole romance between, Thomas McGregor and Bee is actually well done, and actually like that storyline. I kind of wish at one point that they should just 86 the rabbits and just made it all about the humans. Like, he's a city boy, he's controlling, he's begrudgingly moves to the country, and he falls in love with the country girl next door. Kind of like a Doc Hollywood kind of film. I would have loved to see that movie. Sadly, though, we have a movie with some a-hole bunnies that I really just wanted to, at one point. I mean, I love those books, and these are not the books, ladies and gentlemen. Overall, I would give this movie a C-. And the only thing stopping me from going any lower was that love story between, Bee and Thomas. I wish that could have been the movie. And I feel bad for the humans because they try their hardest, with all the dialogue they're given. And, you just wish they could have gotten a better script or just a better movie in general. If you want to see this movie, people, take your kids to see it. They probably will want to see it. Go ahead. Just don't expect to see a good movie. I mean, that scene from Fatal Attraction where the bunny gets boiled? About an hour into watching this movie, I wanted to do that to Peter Rabbit. Ooh. I should probably move on before I get any more murders here. All right, so the last film from February the 9th I will review for you is The 1517 to Paris, rated PG-13. It stars Anthony Sadler, Alex Skarlatos, and Spencer Stone, and was directed by the legendary Clint Eastwood, who brought you such great films as $1 Million Baby, Gran Torino, J. Edgar, American Sniper, and Sully. Now, this film is based on a true-life story. You all remember that in August 2015, there was that terrorist who was on board a train bound from Amsterdam to Paris, and he had over 300 rounds of ammunition and several assault rifles planned to take many lives. But he didn't take any because he managed to be subdued by 2 Frenchmen and 3 male American friends. And in the process, those Frenchmen and those 3 Americans were honored by the French government, gave them the Legion of Honor, and President Obama himself, awarded them medals for their bravery and courage. And so this film is about those 3 American friends. And in an unprecedented casting move, Clint Eastwood, instead of going with actors, he cast the 3 real-life heroes to play themselves in their own movie. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, it has its pros and cons, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So the movie starts off by showing you the terrorists boarding a train, and as we see these scenes, the real-life scenes happen aboard during the attack, we're flash back to scenes from the boys' childhood. The 3 friends, Spencer, Alec, and Anthony, met when they were in elementary school, and they became friends. And throughout the years, we see them, go throughout their schooling years, and we see that Spencer Stone, the main friend, he kind of feels he's been a failure his whole life. He can never succeed at anything, and he feels like his life is going nowhere in his early 20s. And then he sees a recruitment center and decides, I'm going to sign up for the U.S. Air Force and become a pararescue. but he finds he fails at that too, and he finds out that he lacks depth perception in his eye, which is crucial being a pararescue. And bummed out, he decides to go into the other Air Force, try to be a paramedic. And even then, he, struggles to do good at that either. Poor guy. Meanwhile, Alec, his friend, has already signed up for the National Guard and has been deployed to Afghanistan. And during a Skype message, they decide, hey, I'm going to be meeting my girlfriend in Germany. Let's meet up there. And so Spencer invites Anthony to go backpacking through Europe with him. And when they meet up with Alec in Amsterdam, they decide to take a train to Paris, that infamous train that we all know about now. And the terrorist, of course, we all know what happens next. The terrorist, tries to, portray his carnage. And the three friends and those Frenchmen, we know what happens. And let me just say that the film overall its heart was in the right place, but it's flawed. I mean, it's in terms of that casting that I mentioned, the three life heroes playing themselves. I mean, since it's their first time acting, you can kind of tell that already. Their acting is kind of green a lot of times. But there is some pros. I mean, the fact that they're playing themselves, it brings a level of authenticity to the film, I thought. And the way that it was shot, it felt kind of like a documentary, like we were actually seeing, what happened, with the real life people were brought back in to play themselves in this train. Although, in terms of, showing the boys' backstory, how they got there, it's kind of lacks some cinema drama. When you're making a film about someone's life, you have to add some, creative license, to add some drama that wasn't there in their lives. And this film, unfortunately, the backstory is just not as interesting. I mean, like I said, the heart of telling this story of, how the last half of the movie is really great because it shows you the bravery of these three guys, but their backstory is just not nearly as interesting, and that's where the movie falls apart, unfortunately. Overall, I'll give this movie a C+. Like I said, the whole idea of making the movie was a great idea. It's just that I wish they could have, written and, told a different kind of story that ends up with them on that train anyway, in their brave act. But it does a great job, though, of honoring, what it takes, how an everyday person can, become a true hero when, it's they're called upon their country to take action when it's needed. And, I thought, it's a nice, passable film from Clint Eastwood, not one of his best. If you want to see a movie that displays this great act of courage not too long ago, then go ahead and see it. I recommend it then. Time for the recap! I got nothing better to do, being alone on Valentine's Day and all. I'm just kidding. 50 Shades Freed, D. Bad film based on a bad book, with stilted dialogue, no passion, and not even good sex scenes. I don't recommend this film to anyone, not even to those people who like kinky sex scenes. Peter Rabbit, C-. Lame, joy-free film about arrogant, entitled rabbits that torment humans and completely fail to capture the spirit of the books. Don't see this one, people. I would recommend you see Paddington 2 instead, which actually succeeds at capturing the spirit of a classic children's book. And finally, the 1517 to Paris, C+, an honorable though flawed film about the three American men who thwarted a terrorist and were honored for their bravery and courage. Despite its shortcomings, I think I would recommend this if you really want to see it, so go ahead. And that'll do it for this heart-filled edition of Jeffrey Michaels Movie Reviews Extravaganza. Until next time, happy movie watching, everybody, and happy Valentine's Day!